Defense did a great job coming through in the clutch at the end of the game, but we didn't do much to help them out there. We got to start changing the way it looks.
It has been a very strange year for the Las Vegas Raiders, and it seems like despite them having moderate amounts of success, things aren't necessarily looking so good for the Las Vegas Raiders and their best overall player. And he let the world know over the past couple of weeks. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we got all that out of the way, work! Ladies and gentlemen, every time PrizePicks has done this, it's practically been free money for us. For the opening weeks of the NFL season, we've had a lot of success on PrizePicks. I've been showing you guys my picks on Instagram, and I post my picks there for free consistently at the Flight Mike. And typically, you need to at least make 2 correct picks in order to make money. But in this case, PrizePicks is giving us a free Steph Curry square. Steph Curry only needs 1 point in order for his square to convert. So we just need to get 1 pick right at minimum to make money here. So if you're an NFL fan, I'm looking at Tyreek Hill scoring a touchdown versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you're an NBA fan, I'm looking at Michael Porter Jr. to grab more than 5.5 rebounds. Make sure you use my promo code microphone to get a $100 deposit match when you sign up at PrizePicks. This is easily my favorite promo of the year. We've had a lot of success with it in the past. I'm going to show you additional picks on my Instagram story. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I don't think any of us expected a Super Bowl winning season from the Las Vegas Raiders this year. I mean, their off season was so chaotic, and even leading into their regular season, it was relatively chaotic. I mean, hell, if you want to go all the way back to the end of their last season, it was chaotic. The organization essentially had to choose between their latest attempt at a head coach in Josh McDaniels and Derek Carr. They prematurely told Derek Carr that they were going to move on from him. And as a result, when Derek Carr left the Las Vegas Raiders, he tried to make sure he did as much damage as possible, at least in terms of his salary cap. The Raiders essentially dishonorably discharged Derek Carr, just 1 season removed from giving him a contract extension and 1 season removed from a heroic season from Derek Carr. Again, 2 years ago, Derek Carr was able to pull this Las Vegas Raiders team together. They were able to get through the fact that John Gruden resigned in the middle of the season. Henry Ruggs made a horrific mistake that ended in a loss of life, and whatever the hell this is from Damon Arnett. Somehow, someway, Derek Carr and interim head coach Rich Bisaccia collaborated to get the Las Vegas Raiders into the playoffs. And the reward was bringing in a head coach that didn't work out with Derek Carr 1 season later. Now, I will admit Derek Carr had a horrific season last year, but it was the way they decided to go about this that kind of made me raise an eyebrow a little bit. I mean, moving on from Derek Carr to bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, a player that plays very similarly to Derek Carr, and in my opinion is a similar caliber of player, was a head scratcher for me. But I have to admit, Raiders also made some good decisions as well. Signing Jacoby Myers, for instance, was a brilliant move. Bringing back Josh Jacobs on a franchise tag, even though they kind of shot themselves on the foot with that one, and they could have just accepted his 5th-year option. That was a good move as well. Selecting Tyree Wilson in the NFL draft was, I mean, so far it looks like a horrific mistake, I'm sorry to say. But probably the most impressive thing about the Raiders thus far is how they have a 3-3 record in the AFC West, which is something that I wasn't expecting. Now, bear in mind that the Las Vegas Raiders, once upon a time, had dreams of competing in what was supposed to be a very competitive AFC West. I often reflect on the summer of 2022 when the Chargers traded for Khalil Mack and signed JC Jackson, Denver Broncos traded for Russell Wilson, and the Las Vegas Raiders caused pandemonium for the Kansas City Chiefs when they traded for Davante Adams to reunite him with Derek Carr. Bear in mind, Davante Adams decided willingly to go to the Las Vegas Raiders despite the Packers offering him a similar amount of capital just so he could reunite with Derek Carr, who just got a contract extension, and to be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. This deal was the sole reason why Tyreek Hill left the Kansas City Chiefs, because the Chiefs couldn't pay him nearly as much as what the Raiders were paying for Davante Adams. And with that being said, I think the story of Davante Adams is definitely a cautionary tale as to how volatile various situations in the NFL could be. And in the case of Davante Adams, it seems like things have gone from bad to way worse. In year one with the Raiders, Davante Adams had a prolific season, 14 touchdowns, over 1,500 receiving yards. But of course, recently Derek Carr left and the Raiders brought in Jimmy Garoppolo. In the summertime, Davante Adams voiced some concerns about the way the offense was being run for the Las Vegas Raiders.
I feel like college again because this offense is like got to be the most complex in the league.
And in the beginning of the season, I mean, from a statistical standpoint, things weren't too bad for Davante Adams. I mean, he opened the season with a 66-yard game versus the Denver Broncos, which the Raiders barely won. Followed it up with an 84-yard game versus the Buffalo Bills, which the Raiders would lose by 28. And then had one of the most statistically prolific games that we've seen from him in quite some time. A 20-target, 13-reception game for 172 yards and 2 TDs versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. But regardless, the Raiders would lose that game. The Raiders would even lose to the Chargers the week after Davante Adams was targeted 13 times. This would bring us all the way to the past 2 weeks, where the Las Vegas Raiders would win, but Davante Adams wasn't targeted nearly as much. As a matter of fact, he was targeted only 4 times versus the Green Bay Packers and 5 times versus the New England Patriots, with one of the times including this jarring hit by Jabril Peppers.
Oh, ball's up in the air, the deflection.
Now, why am I bringing all this up? Well, despite the recent success, Davante Adams had a bit of a spicy interview. This was his first interview following last week's victory versus the Green Bay Packers.
It more was about, not even making it as close as what it was, because a game like that, we need to have some type of convincing victories. That way we can really hold on to that feeling, not the feeling of just squeezing out. Obviously, defense did a great job coming through in the clutch at the end of the game, but we didn't do much to help them out there, and we haven't been this year. So that's more what I'm focused on, rather than just squeezing victories by and being happy at that. I feel like there's more to take from, a game than just a win or loss. Depending on, you can be on either side. Obviously, you'd rather win regardless, but you can win a game and look. And we've done that too many times, so we got to start changing the way it looks.
So why am I showing you this? Because it's really important to understand the context of the situation. A lot of people are taking this interview that I'm about to show you and turning it into something that I don't necessarily know if it is what it seems. And you'll get what I'm talking about after viewing it.
Certain people thinking like, they won the game, they won the Packers game, so why is that an issue? You see why it's an issue. Y'all should know who I am, know where I'm about at this point. So it's not about, when you're a player like me, mentally, my benchmark is not wins and losses, it's greatness. So when I go out there, I expect to be able to have that ability to put that on tape and have an influence on the game. And that's, like I say every week, that's my purpose of being here. I'm not here just to hang out.
So here's what's a little peculiar for me, okay? And at first I was gonna say that, look, Davante Adams is just frustrated by the lack of team success and he wants to win a little bit more. But I do have to admit, it is a little peculiar that in the games that Davante Adams was targeted the most, I mean, say for week 1, in week 1 they beat the Broncos by 1 point and he was targeted 9 times. But week 2, he was targeted 8 times, week 3 he was targeted 20 times, and week 4 he was targeted 13 times. Those were all losses, including one versus the Chargers, who are notorious for losing close games. And when he wasn't targeted nearly as much versus the Packers and the Patriots, the Las Vegas Raiders won. So a part of me is a little confused here. Is he upset that Jakobi Meyers out-targeted him in those 2 games? I'm not necessarily sure, because he did. In those particular games, the Las Vegas Raiders targeted Jakobi Meyers more than Davante Adams, and he was a little bit more successful. Because it's kind of weird. I don't want to automatically say that he is some sort of selfish player, because I've always respected how Davante Adams told it like it was. He was very professional when Derek Carr was being ousted from the Las Vegas Raiders. He's always been outspoken, and that's something that I've always appreciated about Davante Adams, but I have to admit, I don't really understand the angle here. Some people are saying he's frustrated by the fact that all of their wins so far have been close wins, which I guess makes sense. I mean, if you're only beating the Denver Broncos by 1 point, and then you're losing to the Steelers by 5 points, and then you're barely barely beating the Green Bay Packers, and then you're barely beating one of the worst teams in football in the New England Patriots, yeah, I suppose that's a cause for concern. Is the solution to those problems throwing Davante Adams the football a little bit more? I mean, statistically speaking, that hasn't been the case. Could Davante Adams just be saying that he is frustrated with being a Las Vegas Raider? Because he's told us multiple times that growing up, the Las Vegas Raiders were his favorite team. There's so many ways that you could dissect this piece of information, and I will admit, it is a very confusing interview to have to dissect. At the end of the day, I don't really know what Davante Adams was expecting here. I mean, you went from playing with Aaron Rodgers to playing with your college quarterback to playing with Jimmy Garoppolo. That's a lot of quarterback turnover, and that's 3 quarterbacks at different skill sets. You're locked into your contract for quite some time at this point, and the worst part of all is the Las Vegas Raiders haven't performed terribly enough to the point where they would consider trading Davante Adams in the middle of the season. Even if they did, there isn't a contending team that's going to pull up and trade for Davante Adams. That's just not how it works in the NFL. You don't get your wide receiver 1 in the middle of the season. Typically, it doesn't work out well if you do, unless if he's going to a similar system, meaning if he gets traded to the Patriots maybe, then that could be a possibility. But what I'm suggesting is so far-fetched already, because you have to go to a brand new team, you have to learn new plays and new concepts, you have to develop chemistry with a brand new quarterback. There's just so much that needs to be done that an in-season trade cannot be his angle here. And the Raiders haven't performed horribly enough to the point where they would even consider trading Davante Adams. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think is going on here? What do you think is going on with Davante Adams? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.